the CEO and his team for allowing us to use their venue today. So I'm wearing a different hat. I'm Cheryl's deputy today. Let's start by welcoming a few people. The public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, the chairperson of the Commission on Gender Equality, Ms. Lula Manare, Cheryl's family. For some reason, they're hiding at the back there. Simpiu, no, Anne, they're at the back. Her family is there, is here to support her. The people from the Total Shutdown Movement, Ishosho, thanks a lot for your support. We're expecting John Macheke to arrive very soon. President Kosas is on his way. Reverend Bafana Kumalo is also on his way from Sonke Gender Justice. The National Lotteries Commission, our potential partner is somewhere in the room. Oh, she's here? Yes. Thanks a lot for coming. We're also expecting girls from the House Group Female Shelter and Matthew Mensa. They'll join us later. We'll introduce them as they come in. Pastor Solomon, somewhere. Yes, the real activist in the religious sector. Thanks a lot for all your support. We're expecting Sisanda Kwabe. She's also going to come from the Black Excellence Network. Cindy Mzamo, thanks a lot, my sister, for coming, my sister in this struggle. And all our friends in the room. We've got a lot of friends. We've got friends from Soweto there at the back. We've brought a few people who have gone through the similar situation and challenges. So we've got a few other survivors who are in the room, because we thought it was very important that when we launch this foundation that the survivors are here. I was approached by Cheryl some time ago, and she said she would like to start a foundation after experience. Of course, you know, when you stay with me, you will be an activist one way or the other. I used to be a teacher, you know, I like asking questions. So I asked her a few questions. What exactly do you think a foundation is? Why do you think you should do this? What is this thing going to do? And how is this thing going to work? Where do you see this thing in 10 years' time? How are you going to sustain the attention and make sure that it does everything that you say you want it to do? So she satisfied my questions. And when she asked me to be the deputy chairperson of her foundation, I rose to the occasion. Because I feel, as older persons, I think I can gladly say I'm an older person now, sitting next to a 22-year-old. I feel like I could be a grandmother now to a 22-year-old if my boys had behaved accordingly. So I feel like we should be looking at how we champion such causes and how we support the vision. So for today, I'm just here to support Cheryl's vision. I'm not here to be the main speaker. I'm sure those of you who are usually here might find it a bit awkward, but she's the one who will be leading this foundation. So I must also acknowledge the Cheryl family here. I see my commissioners are also here. Commissioner Skuman, my chief over there at the back, Commissioner Trollip, staff from the Cheryl Commission. They're also here, Commissioner Bota and Commissioner Khama. They are our legal people. Maybe just on house rules. I'm sure you are all still aware that Cheryl is still under oath. So there are questions that will not be allowed for obvious reasons. Advocate Bota is here to mediate the questions. So if we feel the questions are going into a dangerous area, we will not be able to respond to them. If Cheryl is referring to anything dangerous, he's here to stop her from going into any dangerous areas that are pertaining to the case, because she's still under oath and the case will be going on for however long it takes. But we will still be alive and well and kicking throughout that process. So please understand that we're working under trying conditions. Thank you, Biaki.
I'm not sure whether I must say thank you, Deputy Chair.
Yeah, say Deputy Chair. Today I'm a Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much. I think, colleagues, you are all here because you wanted to hear Cheryl to all of us. Cheryl, the stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Thank you for availing yourselves. I know I've been quiet for obvious reasons, but there's a lot that needs to be done, and it starts here. Today is a very special day for me, and I feel for South Africa as well. It marks the beginning of something remarkable, something that's going to make a remarkable difference. As you all know, I spoke out about the sexual abuse and psychological oppression I suffered at the hands of someone who was supposed to be a man of God. Now, to an extent, this kind of abuse is unheard of, or perhaps even ignored, because people do not want to believe that their spiritual leaders are capable of such atrocities. And having gone through it myself, I realize the gap that exists where the support for victims and survivors of this special, complex kind of abuse should be. There is a lack in awareness because people out there are warned to perhaps be careful when they go out to a party or when they're out at night. But they're not necessarily warned when they're going to a church, an ancestral space, a traditional space, or any other kind of religious setting. The number of rape cases that have been laid since my coming out alone against pastors and traditional leaders is astounding. It's, I feel, a wake-up call for everyone who has an ear to hear what is going on in this country. And to say the very least, it is extremely, extremely upsetting. This is a crisis that the country is being confronted with right now. And because I know this, and I know all too well about just how damaging and life-altering this is, I have decided, as my deputy chair here announced earlier, with the institutional support of the Civil Rights Commission, to start the Cheryl Zondi Foundation, and I'm pleased to announce that it's an officially registered NPO. Just to give a bit of background on the foundation, first of all, naming it after myself never crossed my mind at first, but then when I thought about it, it made sense, because unawares, not expecting the kind of turnout, not expecting, or not anticipating rather, the level of support that I received just by saying something that happened to me. I attached my name and I attached my face to this cause that is so close to my heart and that I now consider my calling. It's the reason why I'm here. Through this foundation, I want to assist women and young people who have gone through the same experience I have in sacred spaces. Because trust me, there are countless, boundless, faceless and nameless victims out there whose cases might not get the same level of support or media coverage. Myself and the other survivors who are still going to tell their stories as proceedings continue, we have first-hand experience of the great lack in psychological and legal support of victims who have been abused in sacred spaces, in the religious sector and traditional spaces. When the perpetrator you speak out against is a spiritual leader, someone who uses people's pre-existing beliefs to manipulate and control them, you put yourself in a very difficult and vulnerable position. They are devoted to this leader, and so because you speak out against this leader, they are devoted to dealing with you or even perhaps eliminating you. You're immediately exposed when you speak out to a whole other dimension of danger. Danger from nameless people, faceless people, people who are willing to do anything to support their leader without receiving anything in return. At the Cheryl Zondi Foundation, we want to encourage all victims to stop being silent and come out, despite the consequence of people knowing what has happened to you. Really, that's the only consequence. You own your story, and as long as you know what's happened to you, no one can judge you. We want to support them through the legal process that comes with speaking out. We want to push dramatic changes in the system to make it work for and not against victims. And as part of fulfilling that particular objective, I have personally laid a complaint with the public protector who has joined us today, thank you very much, of this country, asking that the witness protection program be thoroughly investigated and changed, because in my own experience, I have realized that the system does not work for victims necessarily, especially young victims. When a young person helps clean up the country by getting rapists off the streets, it is then the responsibility of the state to protect that person and protect that person's rights. It is neither just nor is it constitutional to ask a youth to drop out of school, move somewhere far away, and forget their identity, all to make cleaning up the country more convenient for the state. Dropping off the face of the earth and cutting off all communication with family members sounds more to me like punishment that a criminal informant maybe would have no other option but to accept in order to avoid imprisonment. These are some of the changes that we are trying to pioneer. And in doing so, I want there to be a move in this country. Women and young people who can hear me, please stop blaming yourselves for evil acts that had nothing to do with you. I want this self-blame and shame narrative eradicated. You need to own your story. Unfortunately, when you've been sexually abused, raped, it's a history of your life that you can't just wish away, unfortunately. It's happened to you, and you need to accept that fact without allowing it to define you. The tagline for the Cheryl Zondi Foundation is turning pain into purpose. There is and there has to be a purpose for your pain, a purpose that is far bigger than you, a purpose that requires you to pick up the pieces and be something, move on with your life more empowered, because the thing that was meant to break you is now making you. For as long as you're alive, you need to work at fulfilling that purpose. I also want people to stop expecting victims and survivors of assault to walk around feeling sorry for themselves. Stop expecting them to stop living their lives. Just because we have suffered abuse of any kind, it does not mean that we must no longer have joy. This move that I speak of, that needs to take place, it requires a collective, collaborative effort. And the very nature of this non-profit organization means that I'm going to need as much support as possible to push this vision forward. I'm going to need people to stop turning blind eyes and help within your own capacity. You don't have to be an organization. You don't have to be a big business tycoon to make a difference. If you know your neighbor perhaps is suffering in silence, do something. Encourage that person to come forward. Because in as much as it hurts to tell your story, these people are going to continue doing what they are doing in our country for as long as we are quiet. There's a saying, for as long as the good are quiet, the bad continue doing whatever they want to do. Something like that. Obviously, within the nature of this nonprofit organization, we are always looking for helping hands and contributions. We don't have a website yet, but we do have active social media pages. That's where the youth goes these days, anyway, speaking from experience, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. On these pages, you can find out more about us, read up about the activities we'll be involved in, and of course, make those contributions within your own capacity. My personal wish going forward is that the state makes skills that are able to deal with this complex, multifaceted kind of abuse available to assist victims, available to encourage them, and available to give them hope. My wish is that there'll be a greater awareness about this special kind of abuse. We've been talking about gender-based violence forever, and it is a prevalent epidemic that has led to so many losses. But this particular kind of abuse, you speak of people that control you. It's mind control. And when someone owns your mind, they own your life. There is nothing that person asks you to do that you will not do. That is my wish going forward. Just before I close, there are a few acknowledgements that I'd like to make. I'd like to thank the House Group Female Shelter for coming through. I'd like to thank Reverend Bafana Kumalo from Sonke Gender Justice for showing support as well. Thank you, Pastor Solomon, for bringing fellow survivors. We need to support each other and encourage each other and show each other that there is life after this kind of experience. I'd like to thank the CRL Rights Commission for seriously the constant, unwavering support they've given me as well as this cause by fighting to regulate sacred spaces for years, even before I came out. I'd like to thank, I'll obviously be working closely with the Commission going forward because the chairperson of that commission is the deputy chair of the Cheryl Zondi Foundation. I still need to get used to that. I'd like to thank the members of the Student Representative Council of my school, who hopefully I'll also be working with in the new year. I'd like to thank COSAS for also pledging their support to this cause. I'd like to thank the Ngobo family. I don't know if they've arrived yet, but they've been assisting me behind the scenes in some very, very crucial times. I'd also like to give a special thanks to the musical legend uLindelani Mkhize, who has availed himself to mentor and guide us musically. By us, I mean myself, the twins, Anele Nelisom Kagaza, and Vicky Faleni, who are my friends and the former Grace Galaxy Girl Band members. We'll basically be working together to package and produce a musical project to intertwine with the public awareness campaigns that we'll be running. And I'd just like to say a special thank you to the women of the Total Shutdown movement, who are also here today and whom I'll also be working with in the near future. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge these feisty women who are literally one united voice, literally shouting against gender-based violence. You women are the perfect example of the pure magic that happens when women stand together and fiercely support one another. As I mentioned, you can find the Cheryl Zondi Foundation on Instagram at Cheryl Zondi Foundation. You can find us on Facebook, Cheryl Zondi Foundation, as well as on Twitter at Cheryl Zondi NPO. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out today. I really feel that this is going to be a great move, not just for the country. It's going to cause a ripple effect globally, because this is happening, you know. So thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
Over to you, Chair. Maybe
Okay. Maybe let me acknowledge you, Matthew, Mensa, and the girls. We spoke about you in your absence. So thanks a lot for coming. And I will then hand over, and Tebucho has landed as well. We call him Tebucho the twin. And I think what we'll then have to do is to hand over back to the program director for any comments, questions, or whatever.
Thanks, Chair and Deputy Chair. Can I get an indication as to whether there might be some questions from members of the media? If there are, please indicate your name and the organization you represent, and then the question. I'll take about, well, let me see first how many questions are likely to be there. Otherwise, we can conclude this session. Any questions? Okay, I see a question there. Looks like that's the only question. Okay? Thank you. So,
hi, my name is Tabila from SABC Radio. Cheryl, I just want to find out, you spoke about the threats that you received from some of the members of the church who were protecting the perpetrator. How do those make you feel, especially when they come from women, people that you used to trust? And number two, I hear you talking about other religious leaders that you're working with now. How do you regain the trust and the faith in a religious person after what you've been through? And then another question, maybe for the protector, just to find out how far, like if we're getting anything from the request that Cheryl has got. Thank you very much.
thank you. Sharon, over to you.
Okay. Pertaining to the threats, I never made any public declaration about the threats, but I did report them to the relevant parties who have informed me that the matter is being investigated. And then pertaining to women and people who support a violator of young people, you asked how do I maintain my belief and working with religious leaders after this experience. It's been a long journey, getting to a point where I'm able to separate, as a Christian myself, God from people who misrepresent God. It has been a journey to come to a point where I do not associate every single spiritual leader with my experience, because the reality is that even though some parts may be broken, the better parts need to come together and make an effort to eradicate and repair whatever it is that needs to be repaired. So it has been a work of separating myself, separating different entities, and knowing where to divert the blame, in essence. Because there are, religious bodies and traditional bodies who are still doing the right things, who are not misleading people. And we need them to push this vision forward.
Or maybe, Biake, I should add that to affirm this on Sunday, this past Sunday, at the Cheryl Zondi Foundation was announced in a church, the Rhema Bible Church, because we felt it's very important to reoccupy the space and to say it's not about the church, it's about individuals. And I'm sure most of you will know, we've been preaching this gospel as the Civil Rights Commission, that it's about the practitioner, not about the church. The problem is with the individual and not about God and not about Christianity and not about any other religion. It's also not about traditional healing. It's about a traditional healer who chooses to do the wrong thing at a particular time in their life. So we announced it and for prayers and whatever, because we still believe as the foundation that there's ample room for prayers. We still believe that there is a God out there, and more often than not, He keeps proving to us that He exists.
Well, thank you. There was a question to the Public Protector, Umem Kwabane. Before she responds, I don't know, in terms of the mics here, maybe I think her voice will be captured. Umem Kwabane, yes.
It'll be fine. Thanks for the question. I don't know whether to thank you for the question, but since I met with Cheryl and the chairperson of CRL, I think it's 2 weeks ago, and I've approached the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Police that we need to meet. We were planning to meet by this week so that we can have an agent intervention. I mean, the matter is so serious and so scary in that apparently there's information that there's money which is promised to whoever can take the life of Cheryl and the other girls, and I think it's very urgent. So we try in our level best that we can meet, and especially at the ministerial level, they can then intervene. As Cheryl has mentioned, that the system, the way it's structured, especially the witness protection system, is not protecting the victim, but it's perpetrating or it's victimizing the victim further. So we will try our level best. For now, we're still trying to invite them to the meeting, but if it comes to a point of subpoenaing the ministers to come, because this is a crisis for us, and I think we will have to do that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I know there is one last question from this side. You wanted to raise a question? Yes.
Hi. I go by the name of Nasipi Lamba. I'm from the house group shelter for girls. I just wanted to ask if you help the girls from all over South Africa.
As we move forward.
Okay, over to you.
Hi, Nasipi. Thank you for coming. Yes, the vision is to help as many people as possible who have gone through sexual abuse of any kind in sacred spaces, especially in this country. So as resources and more things are available, we will be reaching out to more people.
They say face the side.
Okay. Okay.
Move there to that side.
Yeah. So in essence, I just more than anything, Nasipi, I want girls to stop blaming themselves for what has happened to them. I want them to know it has nothing to do with them. And as soon as more girls start coming out and calling, what's that phrase? Why am I forgetting this very simple English phrase? Calling out bad guys for what they've done. It'll make the work much easier because we can't move on our own, right? We need to make an effort together. So if you know something that has happened to you, you need to report that person. And more people will gain courage. And so the move that needs to happen, practically speaking, will unfold. I hope I've answered you. Okay.
Well, thank you. I think we have come to, So there's a question here, and then there's a question here. Those are the absolutely last questions. Okay, can I start with you, Freddie, and then go to that side? Yeah.
All right. Hello, Cheryl, and thank you very much for inviting us here. Katlaho from Kaya FM. I just wanted to know, I see that your family is here. I just wanted to know how important is it for family members to actually stand with you or with someone who's a survivor of such an abuse, and even the community to rally behind you. Have you experienced that support from the community and your family members? And is the foundation as well going to be working with family members who might also be needing guidance in dealing with such abusers that are coming out?
Can we check the second question before she responds? Yes.
Sabona Kanyo.
Hello.
Sabona Chair. Good morning, everyone. Mine is not a question. I just want to pledge support and commend you for your strength, for your courage, and you truly represent the power of women that's inside. And I also want to take this special time and day to thank the Shutdown Movement. They've done an amazing work, and I think when I looked at the summit and with the president there and tying that to your story, and I realized that we've turned the tide. It's the time now to ensure that women abuse and children abuse come to an absolute end. Thank you so much.
There is a comment this side, Mayor, then we conclude.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say to the Cheryl Zondi
Foundation, we are honored and we're very grateful for such a launch. As business women of South Africa, we are behind you and we will support you. As I've said in the briefing session, we are there for you and we want you the best out of you. And if it means for us to work 24 hours, Cheryl will definitely do. Because you're the light of those people that are still sitting in the dark. And I'd like to urge those that are still not talking about what has happened in those secret places, they must start doing it now. We are there to support them. We want better women for tomorrow. We want good women for tomorrow. And we are setting up that platform. So let us rise, all of us, and make sure that we are behind Cheryl. Thank you.
Pastor Solomon wanted to make a comment before we come back to you, Sharon.
Yeah, just again, I know the chair, the deputy chair, said so last, spoke about Friday, how the church is now in a place of repentance. And for me, I really represent the church. And coming from a place where, I've been dealing with this for about 10 years now, and getting to meet Cheryl before the issue came out, I think from a church's perspective, we really are repenting. And this is a justice issue. It's not just a religious issue. And we really want to join hands with technically everybody. Different platform for us to be able to do that. And that is very important. So we're really excited about this. We're really excited about the vision and the purpose. We're really excited about taking pain and turning it into purpose. because that's what it is. The church has failed. That's just a fact. The church has failed over and over again. And that's why I keep saying people are not happy to hear that, but that's just the truth. So just maybe this is a wake-up call from a 22-year-old.
Thank you. Over to you, Cheryl.
I just want to highlight one of the objectives of our foundation is to assist families and friends of those who are caught up in these abusive circumstances, just to touch on that part of your question. You asked about support. I've been getting a lot of questions on social media, passers-by, about how I stay so strong and how I'm able to maintain strength throughout everything that is going on. The support of my family, I must say, has played a pivotal role. Excuse me. My family has supported me through everything, even before the abuse happened. And I think that's a very important thing. You don't support your family members only when bad things happen. You support them through their dreams. You support them through their studies. A musical career is, I think, a little out of reach for most parents. But when I told my mom and my brother, look, I want to be a singer one day, they were like, no problem, we'll support you. You can do this. And already that support foundation was built. It gives you strength. It gives you a foundation. And I think that's partly the reason why I was not scared about coming out publicly with my real face and my real name. Because I knew that no matter what people say, I still have my family who's going to support me no matter what. Friends who I had perhaps shared some details with were supportive. When your family believes you and believes in you more than anything, any kind of judgment that comes from external forces does not really make you lose sight of your truth. It does not make you lose your foundation. So to answer your question, and this is something that I'd like to see happening in more families, support and believe in your kids. Believe in their dreams. Because when you're doubtful, when you doubt them, they doubt themselves. And when they doubt themselves, that doubt trickles over into everyone else who comes into contact with them. So that's very, very important. I'm able to cry and be the worst version of myself with my family. So that's very important, highly pivotal.